Good morning and welcome. It's a pleasure to have you come. You know, it's exciting. We prep, and my team, the 360 team, has done an awesome job getting us ready, and it's exciting. My kids just love the fact that you all come here to the home place. And even though some of them are milking, they say it's just so much fun to see all the pickups pulling in and trams going down. And so this is our Cindy and I's home place. Of course, we have 7 kids. We dairy. We dairy for one reason only, to make young boys and girls young men and women. And it's a great thing that we have. But we're excited you're here today, and we're going to have a great day. We've got all kinds of sessions. We're going to do all kinds of things live, so have a little forgiveness if something doesn't go absolutely perfect, okay? Because my heart gets pounding every time we try to do something live. But we're really excited you're here. It's probably the most information-packed meeting I've ever conducted. Somebody asked me, I think this is the 15th pit that I've dug. And, we're getting it down to science. They put this all together as you saw when you walked in one day. I'm like, wow, guys, you are doing an awesome job. And the corn, of course, is doing its part. I just love roots. That's why I do it every year, just to show you roots. It's just amazing to me what a plant can do. So, lots to talk about. What a year we've had. These are the kind of years that teach us a lot, as painful as it is. And as you drove in, there was no question that you could see a lot of stress in a lot of these different areas. Probably one of the things I learned this year is how to keep a river inside of its banks. 3 weeks ago, it was within 6 inches of coming over. If you look out where we're going to do some tiling demonstration, you can see we added another 12 inches to a low spot. I was holding my breath. Actually, where I'm standing down here was probably 9 feet deep. It was 2 feet up on all this corn. And as you round the corner there, it was 6 feet deep. But I'm curious, as you drove in this morning, how your windshield tour was. I would suggest if you came from the north and the Dakotas, Minnesota, Wisconsin, you saw some pretty good crops. Unfortunately, if you come from the east in Ohio and coming through Indiana and into what we call eastern Illinois, you saw some tough areas. And there's a lot of stress. And guys were asking me up on top, if you had corn that's not quite to your pocket, that's tasseling yellow as big as your little finger, would you still be putting nitrogen on it? And I'm always saying never, never, never give up on a crop, but maybe there comes a time when you say, Uncle, I don't know. I don't know. It's exciting to see what, a wide dropping corn, you can flash corn from yellow to green in 3 days. And I get pretty excited about what that can do. If you came from Missouri, likewise. Probably some pretty tough areas. But I can tell you here in the Tazewell County area, we're flat running out of gas. And you maybe will remember this clip I'm going to show you from Seinfeld. I want to show you what Kramer here. Just take a look at this.
It looks like we're going to need some gas.
Oh? Well, how much gas you think is in there right now?
Well, it's on E. Where's it now?
There's still some overlap between the needle and the slash below the E.
How low are you going to go?
Oh, I've been in the slash many times. Well, this is nothing. You'll get used to it. Just put it out of your mind.
Now, that's funny stuff, but I'll tell you, a field running on fumes, running out of gas, it isn't funny. And wouldn't it be nice if we, like Kramer, that had his needle on E in a cornfield, if we could take a look and we could figure out exactly where this field is at this very moment. So if we had a dashboard above it and we could see exactly where our nitrogen was. And if it would be over there, go back to the other side, we know where the water level would be. We know what temperatures are. We'd understand what gray leaf's doing to the corn and the plant health. We'll talk about that in some sessions today. Of course, then sulfur's been one that's really come to the forefront this year. Probably the most year I've seen in sulfur response ever. And of course, then your P's and K's. But it would be an interesting thing if you and I could just see gas gauges over the top and we could tell when a field's running on fumes or not. Let's take that another step further, an analogy. If you're running low in your gas tank and this is Death Valley, and you see you're well below a quarter of a tank, and you see this sign, and I often wondered what this sign does any good if there's not a gas station next to it. So all you just know you're in trouble. And these are what we want to talk about today is how do we know when we need gas? And then number 2 is how do we resupply? How do we know when the key ingredients? And we're going to talk a lot about that today. These are the problems at 360 that we're going after. When nature decides to play with us, whatever state we're from, and there's 20 states here today. There's over 550 of you. We got Canadians, we got 14 Australians in the crowd today, so we have some of the best corn growers in the world. And so I have been one that for years have told you that when the planter comes and leaves the field, we've set the potential. But our challenge today is, as we go through the day, is talk about what other things can we do to capture as much yield potential as possible. So we're going to show you some successful ways to listen to corn today and how to make corn happy. And you're going to see some really good corn in this bottom, even though we've been under a lot of stress. But I would say this, as good as last year was here in 2014 for Aaron and Jan and David and my team, it was too easy. Everything we did worked. This will be my most profitable year ever in corn production in my history because of everything that I've learned. And so today is about you and I sharing concepts and learning where we're at and learning what we need to take home to raise the bar and capture more potential. Let's get started. We talked about water and lots of it. You know, in the month of June, July here, by July 15th, from June 1st, July 15th, I'm over 30 inches. In July alone, we had a 10-day stretch where I had 13 inches. And not a one of us sitting in here did not realize every time we do something with drainage in our home farm, and we don't have to wonder where those spots are at, do we? Somebody said to me from the east, they said the only place we're going to take the combine is over the pattern tile. That's the only place we got corn to harvest. And so as we invest and we fix drainage, it has a huge impact. And so for 2015, this is a story, isn't it? And so if you and I can go and build a relationship with a drainage company that can help you take and eliminate that, set that good foundation in where we no longer have plants that are totally under stress. And we can go out and we can start to look, even in this area, at pattern tiling, saying, what would it take to change the environment that I'm in? So yes, 360 is about water and nitrogen. And at noon, a little after dinner, right after dinner, we're going to do a tiling demonstration, just show you some of the tricks of the trade. Because at the end of the day, it's about this here. And you can see it on the line on these two 80s. So the 80 on your left has been pattern tiled. The 80 on the right is another neighbor, yet to be done. And we'll talk a lot about it today, but these areas here, I'm going to make some pretty brass statements. That corn's probably 80 bushel behind. And we've been in the field a lot. We've done a lot of hand checks. So this year I challenged our team and I said, guys, let's go for it. The only way we're going to learn how to reach the maximum potential we need. Remember, the goal is to go to 300 bushel average. And so this happens to be in some plots that are out back, and at noon, feel free to walk. We've got it chipped. There won't be any mud. You can walk down through there. And we challenge this corn, and we're going after 400 bushel. Now, I well realize on the home dairy here, in this bottom, when you see this kind of sand that you see down here, and so we've got sand 6 feet down below here, and I got about 14 inches of horizon B, and then horizon A in the top is about 8 inches, but this is not 400 bushel ground. But I told our guys, we're going to push the envelope. Why does NASCAR have Goodyear come in and design tires that go 210 mile an hour, 190 mile an hour on steep curves? You and I aren't going to buy a tire that we have to go 190 out on the road. Well, hopefully not most of us anyway. But what do? It's a learning curve. And that's what I challenged our team. I said, what's it going to take to hit 400? I'm going to tell you right now, we didn't make it. But it's what the challenge is. So what you see right there is twin 20s and 3.5 feet. That's 50,000 ear count. And that's pretty serious corn. It's not 400, but it's not far from it. So what are the things that you and I, what is our assignments? The good Lord has blessed us as corn producers. We understand that sunlight is our greatest friend ever. And when you and I go into a cornfield, this is Tim laying on his back in corn here, and he's got the camera straight up. And what are we looking for? We're looking for, I want to see you at 95% usage. So that's the goal, or higher. If I'd walk in your cornfield and we could see a lot of sunlight, we'd realize that you're giving up some easy money. So sunlight's the name of the game. Sunlight is what's running the pump here. As the sun shines on these leaves, these roots are pulling up a massive amount of nutrients. Transpiration happens. That corn plant sweats, it's got to draw on the roots, and up it comes. And the interesting thing is, we said, do we have a gas tank? And we do. It's not above the corn, but it's in the corn itself. And so if you can take your jackknife and kind of be careful, you can go out at any given time and say, where's Kramer's gas needle at in his friend's car at this very moment? And I can tell you, I've been in a lot of fields and we're out. We're past where Kramer is. The engine's not running anymore. She's flat depleted every one of the warehouse shelves. And it's done everything it can to put it into that ear. And so as we talk about this year, what are some of the challenges? And it's been a little frustrating, hasn't it? Until last 2 weeks, we didn't have much sunshine. We were way behind. On July 9th here, from 14 to 15, we were 40% behind 2014 on evapotranspiration. In other words, the plant was running an idle. And the warehouse shelves weren't getting filled, and the corn ear is saying, I need help. In that shady days, we were struggling in the rain and shade and that cloudy weather to pollinate. How do we know we weren't pollinated? If I asked you a show of hands, some of you would raise it. We had 7-inch silks, didn't we? You could see the silks just kept growing. They weren't getting pollinated. The minute they pollinate, they stop. And in return, what we have is this problem here. Anytime you and I are in the field and we can see where there's a color change, what's this telling us? This pollinated probably within 2 to 3 days. Then all of a sudden we had a real weather event, and these last 7 kernels are a different color. Don't count those when you're taking yield checks. They're gone. If we'd have went back, now this was weeks ago, if we'd have went back this same year, if we'd have left him on the plant, those would be all blowing off. Remember this, simple numbers. Every kernel is 6 bushel. We blew off 7 times 6, 42 bushel. 42 bushel gone. Your banker's stressed. Your wife's stressed. I'm stressed thinking about we gave up 42 bushel in that environment. So it comes down to say, sunlight, how do we manage it? What spacing do we plant so that we can manage it to the best of our ability? So Tim and I went out in the field exactly high noon. Actually, I think it was 5 till 12, Tim, to be perfectly technically correct. And I said, Tim, get down on your knee and put your camera on your knee and set it on the exact same setting. And we're going to go in 30-inch corn, 20-inch corn, twin 20s, and I want to see how much sunlight is in that environment. How much are we actually capturing of God's free gift? And so we did it all in 36,000. So you can see a 30-inch row here. Just keep a sharp eye on it. You can see what the 20s look like. You should notice a difference. And then we go into the twin 20s. And so we do a lot of trials here. I'm trying to figure out for the future for our farm, what row spacing I need to be. If we're truly going to have genetics and technology that can take us to 300 bushel, will that happen in a 30-inch row? I don't think that it will. At the same time, I'm not sure we're going to need this kind of technology to go to twin 20s. So this is 6487 DeKalb, and so we got these plots planted at different populations. All these are 36,000, and you can see the 30s at the top. Right next to it is the 20s. Right next to it is the twins. This corn is not under stress. It has drip underneath it, and every time it even has an inkling it needs a drink of nitrogen, it's there for it. We are spoon feeding it. But we want to look at what does row spacing alone do when we talk about harvesting sunlight. And so we're doing a lot of research with twins. And you get pretty excited at this stage when you're walking this field, this stage, and you see how much sunlight we're capturing early in the game. You would say, well, maybe that's where we need to be. But at the same time, if you go back here and you look at the yield, I'm at this point saying, we're going to stay in 20s. I run the twin planter, and it's, 72 rows that are just a riot to work with if you have any trouble. And if you notice I get older, I'm not any thinner, and you can't get in between 8 inches. And so it's one of those things. But we need to research it. We need to take a look at it. So it's out there. I'm working with Harry Stein, and we're taking a look at this kind of technology. There's some really good things about it. It lets you push populations some pretty ridiculous levels to see where it is. At the same time, it's not all perfect. We run tracks on our planters. So this is a research planter. I knew that it was going to come with these wide flotation tires. I kind of liked the idea that they had them separated with one row in between. I was thinking, well, maybe the pinch effect wouldn't be all that bad. And so I had Camoplast tracks ordered for it, and I told Cindy they're $35,000, and she gave me this look like, do you own the planter? And I said, well, no, but it would be nice to have. And so I run tires, and you go out, and all over the country this year, you can see what these center field planters are looking like. When you go into the twin planter, and you see this with the tires, if I'm going to run it next year, it's going to have tracks. It is painful. So we got the perfect scenarios set up. We're trying all kinds of high population, all kinds of research. The field this was taken out of is a 110-acre field that's been pattern tiled. It's got drip lines every 40 inches. It's got everything. It's basically heaven to corn. And I'm losing 40 bushel in the center of the planter. Look at these guys compared to the outside of it. And you can follow it through yet to today. And I think it'll translate to probably being 15 to 20 bushel loss over the whole field. So it's one of those challenges. If we're going to talk ultra-narrow corn, 12-inch corn, then how in the world are we going to be in there working and feeding it? And that's one of the challenges, isn't it? And last year I introduced to you here drip irrigation. And you're welcome to walk up at noon and look at the drip station right behind the tent here to the east, where you go out to where we have all these high population plots with the Stein planter and the Stein genetics. I have dug open 3 drip lines so you can see it at 18 inches deep what it looks like. And you can see it here. This drip line here is 18 inches deep, and you can see it here, and it's right in here, and it's just giving this corn everything that it needs. We got P and K and sulfur and nitrogen, and anytime it needs a drink, as you can see, all the roots are wrapped right around it, and this is just about the best scenario you can possibly get. So if you're going to do ultra-narrow corn, you're going to say, well, how in the world would I take a wide drop or something through unless you're going to fly an airplane over? You're going to have trouble split applying in. And if you leave here today and say, Greg thinks you can put in on in one shot and be done, then you weren't listening. And so I wouldn't go out and put plots like you're going to see here at 50,000 and say, give it a one shot of in and call it done. At the same time, I'm not selling drip. I'm not going to be selling you drip irrigation, because I'll just tell you it's an ugly baby. It's got some issues. Number one issue is cost. No matter how hard I work on it, so we're going to try to continue to research with it. I would love to get in and redesign some of the things in it. But it can raise some awesome corn over the top of it. At the same time, you also understand when we go in and we start an installation, is kind of tough. You can see us here installed. This is a 300-acre field that we're working in. They got it on 40-inch centers. So we're pulling along here. You can see the drip lines. This drip here is 1.125 inches in diameter. And so it's going to be every 40 inches. In this field, we do a lot of corn on corn on corn, so I'm putting it 21 inches deep. Over the research we've done, we have proven that water will come up twice as fast as it goes down. So as you start a drip system, it'll quickly be to 12 inches, pulling up capillary action versus going down 6 inches. And so it's been a pretty unique system. You would think that, well, drip probably only has an advantage in 2012 where it could have probably increased yields by what, 120 bushel? Yeah. Last year we saw yield increase in an ideal year of 60 to 80 bushel. This year he said, well, Greg, you said you had 30 inches of water where you running drip. Oh, yeah. We could start this drip line right here, and in 3/100ths of an inch, I could put on 20 units on this 110 acres where we're sitting. And I can spoon feed a very small amounts of water. Even if it's pouring down rain on top, I can keep a crop in the absolute best position it can. But we're not ready. We're not ready to go onto the marketplace with it, because if you've ever dug down 21 inches to fix a mouse hole, I don't know how long my arm is, but your armpit's laying on top, and you're going after them. So rodents are a problem. There's just issues and things to address. What other things do we talk about when we say, okay, we're going to look at corn and we're going to capture sunlight. We're going to get to that 95% or greater usage. Then the challenge for you and I, and this is the thing that probably grits me a little bit in the industry and genetics, we're going to have to educate ourselves. You need to become very good friends of your seedsmen, because the challenge is going to be for you to right now to say, okay, I'm going to stay in 30-inch corn for the next 5 years, and maybe I'm going to change after that. So if that's the case, then you need to be thinking about, what corn do I plant? So let's talk about leaf structure. If you're in 30s, would you imagine if you were planting, let's just pick a number, 34,000, would you want all your leaves to be straight up? We call it vertical leaf or upright leaf. Probably not, because you're probably going to get quite a bit of sunlight on the ground. And you're going to be wasting a lot of energy, and you're going to be putting out, remember, twice the amount of water loss of evaporation with sunlight than a plant uses. A plant uses 1/4 inch of water a day. A patch of sunlight loses 1/2 inch a day. Big difference. It'd be much better to put a plant in there than to let the sunlight hit. So when we look at corn, and this is some of these new Stein numbers, and you can see that it's kind of vertical here in the top. It's rather short. And the bottom we have what we call pendulum leaf. Let me show you a little more about it. So we talk about different styles of corn. So I went out and I had to struggle to find this guy here that we want to call horizontal flat leaf, pendulum leaf, because we're in 20-inch narrow row corn, and I just don't plant a lot of these genetics. But look at this guy here. Look how his big old leaves here below the ear, they're all hanging straight out, aren't they? And then as it gets to the top. So when your challenge is here in August, as you go to field days, I want you to start making your own little yearbook of genetics. Let's call it designer corn. And your job is when you go to AgReliant or Channel or DeKalb or Pioneer, first place I look is up at the tassel. Do you see a difference in these two tassels? The one has what? An upright leaf around it, doesn't it? This guy here is what we call vertical leaf corn. This guy here is what we call flat, horizontal, pendulum leaf. But look how his tassel is totally open. That's the first place I look when I go to a plot. This is going to be a guy for light knobs and 30-inch corn at 30,000. I'm going to plant this guy right here because he's going to do a lot of shading, and he's going to utilize sunlight as good as he possibly can. This guy here, if these really vertical leaves, and they're somewhat pendant on the bottom, that's kind of the trend now. We have them where they're kind of horizontal on the bottom, but after a while, they get really vertical. Sunlight's going to come down in a 20-inch row. Or if you were going to be at 38,000 in a 30, then I would be switching to this corn. And so it starts to become, you and I have to educate ourselves. For some reason, you can't open a seed book and figure out, is that a flex ear determinate ear, vertical leaf, pendant leaf. It's not being written down. But this is going to be the game we're going to play to take ourselves to another whole level. And so I just wanted to give you some examples of what's out there so you and I can start to change as we go forward and as we go through. When you talk about, we are at Precision, we design multiple hybrid meters. This is where I think multiple genetics would make a huge stride. This is one of our fields here, actually right across from Precision. I'm sorry, got the wrong pointer. And you can see here, there's two different genetics in here. 6208 is the blue. You can see it running down through here, all the low ground. This is 68 sable. You can see the other genetic is 6333. And so all of a sudden, as an operator, as a professional corn grower, you're going to buy technology like this where you start to separate the 80. And you no longer say, my whole field's created equal. I have different soil types. I have different yield zones. I have different potential. Your job is going to be to find exactly which corn you need to put in there. And you're going to determine, do you need a determinate ear or a flex ear? Do you want upright or not? Here's how I would probably separate it out in my mind. If I was just going to start from scratch, let's just say, we'll kind of accentuate this. Let's say in the field you have some higher ground. Probably a little more struggle for water in that. And so if I was going to be planting in here, I would probably come in here at 32,000, and I'm going to come in here and I'm going to find me one of these old girls that have great big old broad leaves, tassels sticking all the way out the top all by himself. And I'm probably going to come in here and I'm going to put a flex ear if I'm going to plant this light. And so we're going to put a flex ear on here at a little bit lower population. And as we start to come down into the lower, heavier, higher CEC ground, I'm going to start to pick a genetics that has an upright leaf. What kind of an ear am I going to put on it? I'm probably going to put a determinate ear on that. I'm going to put an ear on that isn't going to give up. No matter what, he says, I have length and I'm going to hang on to it. The plant can just run its tank empty. And so you'd come in here and you'd start to run, and I'd probably run 38,000 down in here. But genetics A and genetics B. That's how I would start to think if I'm going to capture maximum potential out of my 80. Those are the things I would start to look at. So let's talk about determinate and flex. I got two ears here for you. I grabbed these two. So both of these were planted at 50,000. 50,000 ear count. Which one do you think's determinate? Well, it's pretty easy, isn't it? The one on my right hand. He didn't give up, did he? He's got some cobs sticking out the top, but at 50,000, I kind of like this corn. This little guy here, he's picking them up and putting them down. This guy here said what? He said, ouch. He said, I'm not able to handle. In a perfect world, wouldn't it be sweet if we could plant flex and know that it wouldn't back up, but if the good Lord's going to give us 2014, we would have potential to do what? Raise, you guys did it, 280 bushel. I heard it. I'd hear guys walk up to me this winter and say, Greg, 300 bushel corn I hit. And he had a flex ear in there, and that baby just cranked it out. And it was 44 long. And so when you look up above here, and you see here up behind me, on your right, you see where this determinate hybrid was planted 32,000, and on your left, it was planted 50,000. And you can see a difference. They're the same around, but they changed in length. This guy here is 36, this guy here is 30. But it's not too bad. Let's take a look at a flex. Look at the difference here. This is, I actually said that wrong. They were both about, I think they changed 2 kernels long in length. This one here changed 7 kernels in length. You can see this hybrid, this flex hybrid, does not like to be planted that heavy. So we went out in that plot, and we took that twin 20, and I said, all right, let's plant about 8 genetics, because we don't know whether they're flex or determinate until we challenge them. And then they show up. And so these are the actual ears. We planted it at 32,000, 38,000, 44,000, and 50,000. Then I took our silage chopper, and right in the middle of the field, I changed the population on my map, on field view, at the exact same spot. And I just took the chopper and chopped it out. So when you walk down there, you're going to have 44,000 and 32,000 on your left. It's marked. And you're going to have 50,000 and 38,000 on your right. It's the same hybrid. We plant it straight through, so it's in the middle of the field. You can grab some ears in the end and peel them down. Feel free to do that and take a look, because look at this Determinate hybrid. Look how it did. 17.3 around. When did the kernels set around? Early on. This guy here selected how many rows. He's 18 around, and he decided to be 18 around when corn was boot high at V6. And that's interesting this year. This will be the first time I can tell you that walking fields and doing lots of kernel checks, this is the first year I've seen corn go from 20 to 14 in the same row, same hybrid in 50 feet. And I'm looking at that, I'm going, are you kidding me? What does that tell us? That tells us that early on in that plant's life, we had really cold nights, we had lots of wet weather, we had stress early, and it said, I'm not going to create, I'm in trouble, and it started to shut down. Cloudy, cold, wet weather, and we got this wide range. I think it also applies somewhat, and we've talked about it for years. I don't have any way to really prove it. I've seen research on it, but it's this right here. When we plant a seed, the goal is, of course, you got your little seedling roots coming out in that spike. The goal is what? We want to have all corn up in a perfect world. AgReliant did this study, and they said if you want to maximize corn in your field, get every plant up, neighboring plant to neighboring plant within 12 hours. I kind of laughed and thought, wouldn't we all love to live in a perfect world? But I'm starting to believe that there's something to this, and when we say we walk in your field and we count an 18, we go 5 plants and count a 14, we go 3 plants and count another 18, what are we talking about? We're talking about some of these late emergers have enough stress and adverse conditions that they put less rows on around. And so that's things for you and I to think about. How do we create a planter pass that eliminates that? So we're 17.3 around because early on, not a problem, 37 long. We go here to the 38,000, 17.5, basically the same. So this Determinate here says, I really like 38,000. Then we go to 44,000. And we dropped some length, didn't we? We crossed over the threshold of comfort in this genetics. This is 9440 Stein, that new HP number that Harry's so excited about. And so you can see it here at 44,000. You're welcome to go out and look at this. And then you watch it at 50. And this is why I get excited about Determinate ear corn. At 50,000, it had 16 around. Yes, it dropped some rows because they were really tight in there. This is twin 12, and it only lost 2 kernels in length. And we made up for it flat out in ear count. Now, I was hoping this plot was going to show you something different. Because at the end of the day, I don't want you to go home and say, well, Gregg said the only way we're going to get to really serious corn if we just kick populations up through the roof. Because seed corn is expensive. And you're going to have to raise a serious amount of bushel for every 1,000 that you add in. There's a cost to that. Last year it looked to be like 34,000 beat 44,000 hands down. If you found the right genetics, and I had some genetics, had vertical leaf for 20-inch corn with a flex ear, and it did a phenomenal job. But this year with stress, it went backwards. And the more ears are winning flat out. I'm a little disappointed from this standpoint. If you and I have, keep walking away with all my tools, one of these days I'm going to build a tool belt for presenters, and everything would be on you. Let's just think about a soil. If we had a block of soil here, and we have certain nutrients in here, and if we put one plant in that, and its roots can feed on that X amount of available fuel, and if it could raise in that 225, let's say that's 32,000, that's a pretty sweet deal. If we go in here, and let's say we decided that we're going to run 40,000, and we put in another plant right in this same 12-inch block. Or maybe we have another guy right here at the edge, you get up to 44,000. And now we have 3 sets of roots feeding on the same amount of available nutrients, and stress hits. This is going to be a problem. So in the perfect world, if we could figure out the right genetics with the right row spacing, with the right amount of nutrients, one will always be a better scenario from a health standpoint. But the fact still remains this year, more ears, you just couldn't overcome it. The ears flat out won. Let's take a look at flex. 32,000, you can see it here. 18 around, 36 long, 280 bushel corn. Jump it up 6,000. It stayed basically the same, just a little less around. But ear count wins there. It took it up, almost 20, 21 bushel? Then we go to 44,000, and you start to notice it. What did the flex ear do? It said, uh-oh, I'm in trouble. It started to pull back in the tip, and we lost 7 long. Same genetics. Basically, in that silage cut, there's only, 20 feet apart, and you can see that it's starting to pull back. And so here, ears didn't do anything. This scenario here starts to come to play. Too many plants feeding on the same block of soil. So if we take that and we chart it for you, you can start to see here exactly the red hybrid, no question about it, it's a determinate ear. You don't have to look into the cow book to figure that out. They're not going to tell you anyway. But if you looked in there, you could say this one here is determinate. The gray bars are what? They're flex. They're telling you, ouch. If you get your planter set too aggressive and too high, that's going to be a problem. So as we talk about this, and you see this up here at 360 bushel corn, what do we know? We know that old girl is pretty thirsty, don't we, for nitrogen. So let's talk a little bit about how you and I start to understand how do we feed nitrogen to corn so we don't drive by these fields and see the famous wave. Ron and Tim will talk about peaks and valleys. Walking in the same row, 100 feet of green corn, can't jump up and touch the tassel. You continue to walk to the north, and all of a sudden you're in corn, your head's sticking out over the top of it, and it's yellow. And you're out of end, and that corn's stressed, and you're pulling back, and you're looking at 100 bushel swings. You and I will see it, won't we? We'll be harvesting it. And there's going to be spots in the field, unfortunately, where you can turn the auger wagon around where it isn't even harvested yet because there's nothing there. And that's just the reality of what we're facing this year. And we've been in the air a lot between UAVs and helicopter rides, and I'm afraid in this Tri-County area there's going to be some really disappointed growers that haven't been to the back of the field yet to look. But if we're going to shoot for 360, 400 bushel, and this will get all the environmentalists nervous, look at the number there that Fred Below, University of Illinois, Dr. Fred Below did a lot of research, and basically he says this: for every bushel of corn you're going to raise, it takes 1.11 bushels of N. That's a fact. That's science. So if you say, Greg, we're raising 220, what Dr. Fred's telling you is that you need to have available 244 pounds. Now, he didn't say you need to apply 244 pounds. He said it's going to take 244 pounds to build the plant and the ear. The million-dollar question for you and I, and this is where we live today, is how much do we need to apply, and how much is our old buddy Mike, this is Mike and all of his friends are having a picnic, and you can see the microbial bacteria there working, because the way creation's designed, they give us free nitrogen. I love it. It's called mineralization. It's not uncommon in the right year to get 80 to 100 pounds free. Kurt just has it free. He didn't have to write a check for it. Nature just said, Kurt, you're a good guy. You live up there by Woodhall. You need 100 pounds. Bingo, here it is. So you take Dr. Fred, and it says for 220 you need 244. And if, let's just pick an easy number in math. Let's say 100, because I can do 244 minus 100. That's 144 he had to apply. And last year we saw some amazing numbers, didn't we? Remember some of the numbers? Jim Hedges is going to be speaking to you. Really good little corn grower down by Decatur on my team, my head sales manager. And Jim and I are both same personality. We're not competitive at all. We just pat each other on the back when things are going good. And he lives in the garden spot of the world right now, south of Decatur. There's two of those. There's some in northern Illinois and then the south of Decatur here. Everything went perfect. In fact, Jim's corn will be better than 2014. And I'm happy for him. I just wish he wouldn't come in every day and tell me. And so I think we'll probably figure the drip corn, since that's our system in part of the yield. So as we talk about what needs to be given, I lost my train of thought. Tim, why did I come over here to draw? He goes, I don't have any idea where you were going, Dad. And so we know the microbials are going to give us a certain amount of free nitrogen. And so last year, Jim and I both, we had fields, pounds of N to raise 1 bushel. That's almost, I don't know in my lifetime if we'll ever get there again. Right now in some of these 400 bushel plots of 50,000, we got 370 pounds of N on to raise 400. And so that's going to be more like what? And some of them have 300 pounds on. That's about a 0.83. If you got 300 pounds of N on and you raise 360 to 370, you're at about a 0.83. And this is what all the government, this is what all the Illinois Natural Resources are worried about. What's it going to take? And what are we going to create? A lot of guys live in about a 1 point something per bushel. And so we want to live on a razor blade of efficiency, don't we? And so as we look at these fields, where are we at? And this is a common field. This is here in this area. And you see this field, and the challenge is, what's happening here compared to here? And how do we build a rate? Let's say tomorrow we were going to go in here and apply N to rescue this field. What rate should we use? And that's been the challenge from day one. And a year ago, as a farmer, I stood on the stage and I told you we're going to jump in with Commander to modeling. And I've lived through that in great detail. And I'm excited. Tim and Ron are going to talk a lot about modeling that's out there, whether it's in Circa or Climate or Commander, and all the things that we run into as growers. One of the main reasons modeling is so popular because it's what? It's the easy button. Scientists are telling us what? They're saying from a satellite, if this field's 3 states away, we can tell you what you need to do in here. Yeah, maybe. So as a grower, we're going to be changing some. I've lived through a year of modeling, and I can just tell you I am driven to capture all the potential I can in the field. And I'm not convinced that modeling alone will ever understand what's in this soil at any given moment, how much Mike has done due to rainfall. That's hard to be accurate. I've lived it. I've taken your calls. You can say, well, you had 6 different weather services, I understand. And they're still not accurate. And so as a grower, I'm going to tell you, we're going to be shifting. And I'm going to be moving more away from modeling to more to what I call true measure because of this very thing here. Mineralization and how much nitrogen you put on, how much leach. What was your drainage in that one spot in the field? What's been the rainfall? What's the temperature? What's your planting population? Where's the crop at this time? How much residue is there from the previous year? And you start to stack all these up, and if not every one of them is perfect, you start to veer sharply off to the right. And as a grower, I'm not going to risk it. And I come to Tim and Ron and our team, and I challenged them, and I said, I want to go to a measuring system. We own technology and soil scan where any given time in that growing season, right where I'm standing, I know right here, I have 15 parts per million of nitrate left. I just told you how much Kramer had gas in the tank. So if you tell me at any given time I can come in here and probe anywhere and I can give you the exact fact of how much nitrogen that corn plant has to live on, I'm pretty happy. So we're going to take the things we like the best out of Commander and bundle them together to create the ideal system for each and every one of you. Let's take a look at what some of it looks like. So here we are on June 22nd at the Rother Farm. You can see it here. We got 4 parts per million of nitrates left. What's that telling us? We're at the E. It's time to get the applicator. Let's go. Let's add in. You can see, and they'll be talking about it, we're going to introduce the second sensor in soil scan. In the same cup of water, we're going to give you pH. Really tickled how Rhett and Stacy and their team have got us to that point. But basically, that says 4 parts per million of N, and then you say, well, what's that mean? And we're going to show you. We're going to start to give you the ability to write a prescription off of fact as you go into 2, 3, 4, 5 different areas of the field. In this example, you take that 4 parts per million right up here, and you say, my yield goal, I know, and you know, you're going to yield 220. Nobody knows more than a farmer. Satellite's great, but I know where our yields are. I can tell you across the river, I've walked in that corn, 6640, it's silage corn. I can tell you right now it's going to yield 240. I've been in it. It's phenomenal. Ears are here. Corn's 14 feet high. And every ear you pull down is 18 by 36 at 39,000. And you and I know. And so then, that simple fact, we say, well, when we're going to apply, we say, well, we're going to apply here in V12. And you'll hear it all day long. About V10 on is when the corn plant says, I really need a milkshake. I'm ready for my blizzard. And it's ready to pull up some serious amounts of N. And at the bottom here, it says what? You need to apply 107 pounds in this spot to keep this corn extremely happy. And so these are things that we're working on. And in the sessions today, you're going to see a lot of different information. So I don't want to go into too much detail and get too far into it. At the same time, wouldn't it be really neat if we could have some simple apps on iPhone and iPad so when we're out, knowing we're heading out to take soil samples, we can record exactly where we're at. So we're going to introduce to you today 360 Yield Patrol, a free app. Put it on your phone. It's got all kinds of neat little features that Lyle, our double E, put into it. And Lyle's got the ability to go in there. It'll tell you exactly where you're sampling, exactly where you need to go sample. It's going to have a barcode technology, so you no longer have to worry about are you writing the right sample number on the bag. The bag will be barcoded. You just scan it onto your iPhone or iPad. And when you come back to soil scan through the 360 Commander Cloud, it's going to be there. And it becomes very simple for you and I to go out in this field and find the things that we need to find. So we go out and we talk about pulling probes. And so as we go out, we'll tail, and you'll hear it today, we'd like to have you go all the way across the row. Ran into a grower and he said, well, and I'm very guilty to this, that's why I have 4 boys. And so the corn row is here, and he had come in and side dress in hydrous ammonia right in the center of this 30-inch row. One of the wees of his young boys, he pulled all his samples that day in the center of the row because it was easier. The other young man went across like this. You think those numbers had a difference? In soil scan, this gentleman here, the young intern, he had 15 parts per million of nitrates. This guy here had 145. Farmer looked at that and he said, same field, different areas. He said, well, what is it? Then as they got to talk, and they said, oh, you pulled all your samples in the field. So Ron and Tim will talk about how do we go across the row, and this happened to be a picture in Twin 10. And so it's one of those tasks that I send young men out for. Very rarely do I pull soil samples. And I realize that it's a challenge. And so I told our team, I said, let's have some fun. And let's jump in and let's take a look at some different easy ways that we can do it. Now, my dad had told me years ago, never put the chainsaw in the dirt. He said, son, if you put your saw in the dirt, it's going to struggle cutting wood. And so we got a neat little system that we're prototyping, and I'll show you some high-speed video. Simply take your chainsaw. We have technology put on of a certain type of blade, and you can go, and I've been able to go from 30-inch row to 30-inch row in 30 seconds. I can cut a crosshair of ease, and in that cup is where all my dirt is, and it's perfectly fine. It no longer looks like this. You see down here in the bucket, you see all these shotgun shells, and you realize you have to do something to that when you get them home. If you're going to have a soil scan give you an accurate reading in parts per million, you got to crush all those up. And so this is the kind of things that we love to play with. This is concept. This is coming down the pike. But let's take a look at it, how it's running. And this is high-speed video, so it doesn't look like we're going very fast, but we're moving right through this soil. You can see the chain is bringing that dirt up, and you can see it's all coming out here where the cup mounts, and you're capturing 100% at 12 inches deep. So now you have a 6 to 8 pound machine that'll slide right on the holder in your back. When you get there, you fire up, you cut your sample, you now have fine dirt in the cup, you dump 2 tablespoons in the soil scan, and you're off and running, and you're ready to go. And so these are things that we work on and we have a lot of fun with just to take a look at and see what will be the next steps. So as we talk about nitrogen, Mike there on your right side of the screen, I've already told you, is a gift. And it's one of the things that for years we've been working with on corn. This is a corn stalk from last year. I have told you many times, Mike cannot penetrate the side of the stalk. Mike can only come in from the ends. And you can see it here. So this stalk was out here all winter, and Mike and his gang come up here to the ends, and they fed in. But right here in this stalk, where this stalk is extremely tight compared to out here, you can see we have 7 inches of pith in there that's dollars in the bank that has not been converted to anything. It's still in its raw form. And so the challenge was last winter at the Yield Summit, I said, we're going to start to introduce technology, retrofit to corn heads that can start to create an environment that can make the ideal situation for Mike. What's out there in the market now creates a lot of fines, and it makes many small pieces. And what we saw in the field, and those of you that have been in the field following some of these heads, you'll notice that the seedling blights are increased because the small pieces, the row cleaner no longer can come in and knock that out. And I can tell you that we see about 1,500 plants per thousandth of an acre. So if you planted 34,000, you got about 1,500 that aren't going to ear. And that's just a blank, and it's just a weed. But at the same time, we realize we need to do something to help Mike. And so in January, up at 5 Points, I introduced to you a concept called chaining. I said, well, we're going to create a lot of small pieces. The only difference is through technology, we're going to keep them all tied together. So when a row cleaner comes in, it grabs that and it spits it off to the side. It wipes it clean, and you're planting in a perfect environment. So this is what the chain roll today out of production is going to look like. And you can see here, it's got lots of flutes. That's a 10-flute roll. You can see the serrated edges on it. And they're running 2 different opposite ways. And so as they come in, they're going to slip and play right onto your 600 series corn head. And they're going to come in, and you're going to bolt them on there. And when you start to go in the field, you're going to start to work and create what we call chains. Mike and his team are going to have a ball of fun here. Everything's into pieces, still attached, and you can see it here. We've fractured it. And of course, we're going to do this live in front of you today at the combine. But you can see what we mean by taking and creating technology just slips in your existing head. Whether you're a no-tiller, strip tiller, full till, I'm really pumped up about what we think we can do with Mike. Other things that we'd like to introduce to you today. Corn heads have always been a mystery to me. I love setting combines. See, I would rather combine corn and go on vacation. And it's a real good thing my wife really likes to stay at home a lot too. We do go a few vacations, but she is not mad if we're at home. She loves the dairy. And so we got a perfect scenario. I can harvest and she can enjoy the dairy, and we both enjoy it. But at the same time, when we're harvesting and I go underneath a head and I see header loss of 2 bushel or greater, I scratch my head and I say, something is wrong with this corn head. Why do we have such a large opening? You say, well, Greg, their deck plates are hydraulic. Well, I got news for you this year. Good luck when you're running through the field and you got corn the size of this little pointer here, and then 3 feet later you have one that's running out of nitrogen as you enter that area. And I'm pretty good at hitting the lever from 0 to 1 to 2 to 3, but there's no way in a 30 or in a 20-foot head are you going to be able to adjust. And what you and I are going to see a lot of this year is this right here. Remember, 2 kernels per square foot equals a bushel. This is common. This is out here, if a deer head in our 80-day corn, it's now down to about 18 to 20%. And you can see what happens when you get corn that's loose in there. You can also see what it looks like next year if you're going back into beans. And it starts to become one of those things I just scratch my head about. And I realize these 2 plants were next to each other within 3 feet. One is going to go right through and create corn and beans next year, or lost dollars. You can see the stalk diameter. This guy here is a serious ear. Look at his stalk diameter, and that's the challenge that we run into. And I'm telling you, let's design things that you can just retrofit your head. You don't have to change your head out. You don't have to go out and buy another $100,000 corn head. And you no longer have to look at these little nubbins that are coming through. So we're going to introduce to you today 360 Yield Saver gathering belt. And this likewise is an early concept. But it's got it's a belt with soft flaps. Corn easily goes through, but we maintain and keep every kernel in the head. Well, that's a little bit, not every kernel. There's still kernels that are going to bounce out. But let me show you what it looks like in a corn head. I want to show you how violent it is. Now you can see here, this is a prototype. It's actually rubber on a chain. And you can see here, we've got it all closed off. But watch these ears, and you can start to see all the different kernels from these collisions that are bouncing there. There's a kernel right there flying around. And as you see that, you realize in a standard head, all those kernels are going to go right through on the ground. And so as you see them hit the tube, you can see the kernels coming loose. And it's one of those scenarios. You can also see these guys here coming in. And any other head, that guy is right through your deck plates and right in. And so as you watch these heads run, you can see how much activity's in there. And you can see a lot of kernels are airborne. And we're just going after this approach saying, we're going to go in and we're going to play. And we're going to put something so simple, you just retrofit your head and you're off to capture, as much as you possibly can. Early indications are right now, we're saving 2/3 of the kernels compared. So if you looked at a test, it would be about anywhere from 300 in a certain amount of row. 2 rows, 25 feet long, was about 300 to 270 on the deer side, and we're running between 67 and 92 kernels on the 360 side. So I like where we're at. It's a great start, and it'll continue to develop. In this tent of 20 states and 2 countries and 500 of us, we have a lot of different forms of nitrogen and methods to apply, don't we? As we drive around, we can kind of give ourselves a scorecard on our system. This individual did a pretty detailed plot. For years, he has been 100% anhydrous ammonia, pre-plant, and so this is his program here. He's got 200 pounds on right before the planter. And if you and I were looking at that, we'd probably say, looks like that bar might have a little problem with accuracy from knife to knife. You can see some strips in there. You can also see on your far left on first set, He did 150 anhydrous pre-plant, come back with 50 with the planter. And strip number 2, he said, I'll do 50 with the planter. I'm going to come back with Y-drop and Y-drop my corn with another 150 at V6. And then the next 24 rows, he said, I'm going to come in and do 50 with the planter. And I'm going to wait to do the other 150 till later on, about V10. And then it rained and rained on him, and he didn't get in until V12. Makes me a little nervous, 50 units. What would we need to keep Mike happy early on? If we were going to keep Mike happy early on corn, we need 100 units with the planter or pre-plant, either with a floater or anhydrous. Before you plant corn, I would say in a corn, you better have 100 units on to feed the carbon load, or you're going to back up. But in this case, 50, this is a bean field, corn on beans, and you can see it held. So Ron went back in there with Greg Urey, our 360 representative in that area, and they went in and took yields out. First strip, 163 bushel, and you can see that they've got some dark green strips in there, and you can see them here, but they took an average of the kernel checks out of there and ear counts, and they come up with 163. Where he put 50 on at the planter, come back at V6 or knee-high corn, he had 184. He gained what? 21 bushel. By doing what? Extending that window some further than the planter itself. You'll hear us say it all day long. Time is your friend. Kurt, the longer you can stretch it out, the more Kurt knows. Think about how much rain we had in some of those weeks. And if you and I can react and we don't shoot all of our bullets at once, he has nothing left in the bank. He shot all of his ammo, spent all of his money in one shot. And then here in the center, he had 50 on the planter, 150 at V12. He went after the V6 heavy rains, come in, and they said it was all in ear length. And then you see the 121, and you realize, thankfully this year, his whole program was wide drop at V10 with the planter coming in behind it. With the planter had the 50, and he's got some of the best corn he's ever raised. This is down in southern Illinois. But this begs the question, how many of us are tempted to use an anhydrous, which is a form that's no question cheaper, but there's always a temptation in the fall to say, let's just check the box and get it done, and let's put it all on. And the million-dollar question is, and you'll never convince me that none of you in here are smart enough to know I need 223 pounds with this much N-serve on November 1st to finish my ears on August 11th. We're just not that smart because nature has this way of challenging us. But at the same time, 360 is a nitrogen company. And we want to help no matter what form, what style of N you put on, with what type of application method. I want to keep you in the sweet spot of accuracy. So in our minds, if you're going to use anhydrous, I would love to help you. I stress when I see this right here, and I see bars that are doing this kind of number, and I see yields like this, and you realize 30 inches away, what is that difference? 84 bushel? 84 bushel times $4 is $336 on top. And so those are the things. So I'm excited to announce today that 360 is jumping into anhydrous. And we're going to come and we're going to help you fix some of the problems that are out there. What are some of the problems that are out there? Well, we know you need to put it on when it's cooler. I really start sweating when I drive down the road and harvest at the last part of harvest, and I see strip tillers in this area putting anhydrous on when it's 78 degrees on my pickup thermometer. And I say, ooh, I don't think that's going to work. We're going to be converting ammonia to nitrates pretty fast. But the problem is in cold weather, and this guy give him an attaboy for it's cold out. You can see the snow rolling. And we say, well, we'd like to see you applying below 50 degrees. He's well below 50 degrees. But what happens to tank pressure when it gets that cold? On that big a bar running that fast, I'll guarantee you across that 60 foot, he probably has anywhere from 30 to 40% variances from knife to knife. You and I come back next, pick a date, June 1st, and we're going to be in wayside corn and we're going to see yellow streaks. And so we're going to go after that. And we're going to look at technology where we don't come here and see knife-to-knife streaks. And you can see that this applicator was not running accurate. So the 360 team went out and we said, look, let's jump in. And we interviewed a lot of you, and everybody said the same thing. Equiply Liquormatic from ANH3, a company not just too far south of us here, has got the best anhydrous system in the nation. So our family was very fortunate. We went to them. We were able to purchase this technology, all the IP, all the patents, and we're able to jump in, and we're going to start from here to engineer. I've already hired an engineer just to work on anhydrous to simplify this and to create technology. So with the towers that you see here and the stainless steel pump, we're able to keep it all in liquid form. And so as you go through small or large bar, no matter what the temperature is, and you're going to hear Josh say, I've applied in frozen ground at 23 degrees accurately. This is the kind of technology you want to bring to you. So no matter what form of N you want to play in, we want to be able to tell you we got you in the perfect spot to capture as much yield as possible. And then there comes the time when you say, can we spread out our window? And you watch this guy running through, and your heart starts pumping because you realize he's in here, and he's increasing potential. He's had soil scan in here, and he's in here down at the bottom. He's putting the wide drop on. Since last year here, it's changed. We put a lot of improvements into it. But it's just not how great that little hood looks. It's all about this right here. Where do we place it? Is it in the ideal spot for you and I to capture 100% of the value of that 32 or 28%, or if it's got sulfur in it, a lot of that we did this year. We had sulfur in. We could see the striping in the leaves. And so when we start talking about placement, it's all about is how quick can we flash this corn back. In our seed fields in this area, we did thousands of acres of custom work. Seed fields were struggling. They were yellow. And we were able to document that if we come in with a wide drop system in 3 days, we can take yellow corn to green corn in 3 days. Airplanes in this area were taking 14 days of urea. And so it's about how quick can we get the plant out of the hospital and back on the track. And so it's things that we look at. So placement is key. And you can see here, side dress bars have run. They've been running for years. And you can see this operator, in fact, he's taking some wide drops on one end, but he's running a colder in the center. We've talked about it often. When we slice that center row, and this is our side dress bar and our plots, look what you see here. Look at the scorn mark that we have. And as you look in right here, maybe you can't see it from your sitting, I've got number 3 crown roots that we've cracked and broke. So we cut the IV line to mama plant. And so as you come in and you start to think about placement, it becomes very critical. We go back, this is Randy Opperly here, one of my dealers that's got this 60-foot side dress bar, and those outer 4 rows, he was gracious enough to go in and take some checks, so he turns around, he's got 8 rows together there, and he's showing some pretty good sized numbers to what? To where nitrogen quickly got to the root mass. So when we think about where we're placing it, and we're thinking about right here, where it's right beside this root, these guys here are going to go to work. And as the water comes in, so is the nitrogen. And those are things that we're excited about that we can take quite a look and makes quite a difference. How about plant health? Jim Schwartz, probably one of the sharpest guys in the country on nitrogen, is going to talk to you down here in the Big Ten here in his sessions. He's going to talk about plant health and nitrogen. Plant health is something we can't overlook. And so a year ago, we introduced Undercover, simple technology. It simply sprays from the bottom up instead of from the top down. And you're going to see Jim with some really good, we've done litmus paper with airplanes and helicopters and Undercover. And those are the things that we want to show you today, and we'll show you live. We're going to run stuff live in front of you. As we start talking about wide dropping corn and adding mid and late seasons, OEMs are listening. You can see the Hagee sitting out here right by the lane. Been talking with them as a company, with Jim and Kevin, two of their leaders, and they said, Gregg, as we watch your technology, we're going to be introducing a brand new sprayer to Farm Progress Show. This is a DTS 10, and I love it when OEMs get it, and these guys are getting it. This is a high sprayer. This sprayer is going to be the same height as its big brother, the STS 16s, 14s, 12s. It's going to have 72 inches, so I can walk underneath it and still have 2 inches. And you're going to go into corn, but the main feature it's going to have dual tanks. And so they come out and they said, look, we need to cut the price. So they're about $120,000 cheaper than any other high sprayer in the market. They're going to be $200,000 plus change. They're going to be 72 inches. They're going to have a 1,000-gallon capacity and 2 500-gallon tanks of 2 pumps, so you can start to do undercover and wide drop on the same pass. And so you're telling me you're doing late season in, or if you're putting on Priaxar, we got a lot of plots of Priaxar here. In our 400 bushel plots, we come in at V6, we come in at V8, and then we came in at V16 with headline amp over the top of undercover, and you can't find disease on those corn plants. They are the happiest corn I've ever seen. Still not making 400, but they're happy. And so this is the kind of technology that I get excited about when I say these are companies are listening. They got a brand new cab, a brand new design, 220 or 215 horse, but the number one thing is it only weighs 18,000 pounds. I like that because I've had to back in corn this year for the track tractor to pull the sprayer out. And so if it only weighs 18,000 pounds empty and you add another 12,000 pounds of fertilizer, you're in the hunt. The big sprayers weigh anywhere from 28 to 36,000 pounds empty, but you still have the same height to go in tall. So at the Farm Progress Show, take a look at it. We're going to finish up here. I'd like to show you this field because this is one of our fields. It's right across from Precision. Remember I showed you it was a multiple hybrid? So this right up here along Locust Road, this is Town Line Road here. You can see this is DeKalb 6333, and this is a 6208. And then down in here again, you can follow it, you can see the 6333. And so you can pick up the differences. Over the last 20 years, I've worked hard at trying to figure out technology where we can widen our chances of hitting a home run. So my program is pretty simple. I put ammonia sulfate on. We are in corn and corn. So in the fall, I'll come in ammonia sulfate. I need about 26 pounds of sulfur, and that's going to give me about 60 pounds of nitrogen. And I'm putting that on stalks. The day the combine leaves, we come in and spread it, and I'll give my program, I'll give it credit for it. Then we come in at pre-plant, and we'll put on 70 to 80 units. That's all driven by our CECs times 10. And so just look at your CEC and your soil test, take it times 10. You never want to be over what that number is. So if you tell me, Gregg, I got 11, let's do it different. I got a 9 CEC. We probably have folks here from the south that probably have 5s to 7. If Delaware's here, they're in the 5 range. Times 10, you can never put more than 50 pounds of N on any one time. And if you do, it's going to end up down here in this mud pit going out the bottom of the field. And so we'll put on about 80 pounds right with the chemical, grass. We always hold back our broadleaf. This year we put on 30 pounds with the planter because I wanted to take and leave for our wide drop. I wanted to get out here a ways. I want to learn. I want to figure out everything that's happening in here so I have more knowledge. So I added 30 pounds. It's about 2 by 2, 2 below the seed, 2 off to the side. And so that's our program. And then it becomes the question mark. And what does Mike and them produce? And we use FACT. We use the measure system. We go out and we probe this week. We wait 5 days, we go probe again. Mike's either active or Mike's not. Corn's either running out or it's extremely happy. And so for years we did this, and side dress was a huge, absolute part of our program. Could not get along without it. It was always a challenge. We had to get it done before this corn got too tall in 20-inch rows, and you can see us here. It's a track tractor carrying 1,000-gallon here between the tracks. It's carrying another 800, 900 there. And so we're out there and we're paying attention. And so in this field, we did the program, and we came in and we did every other 36 rows. And so you can see here at V6 we came in, which was in that May 29th time frame. We came in and we side dressed 140 pounds according to what Soil Scan was showing us. We've had a lot of water, and so it looked like it needed it, and I'm pretty proud of that system. I've done it for years. It takes a lot of energy. I said it's worth the extra trip. I would much rather be playing ball in the yard with the boys, but I said we need to side dress all of our corn. And that program has been top drawer. Then we come in this year, and you can start to see here, and it doesn't take you very much to start to see that when we come in and Y dropped at V16 on July 3rd, 140 pounds, this hybrid responded in a unique way, didn't it? And you can see hybrid B on top did not respond to the naked eye. And then you walk in the field and you can see it to the row. So we're in the middle of the field. We're walking through from this angle, and when we hit this, I said, stop. Of course, we had our iPad and field view with us. I didn't need it. You could see it to the 20-inch row. Corn on this side was colder. Corn on this side is wide drop, same amount of N. And you start to look at the ears, and you say, oh my system that I've put on thousands and thousands of acres of corn every year, am I glad I didn't run it in any of my acres this year, besides our plots. And you can see the difference there. You hold the ears up, interesting enough, they're both 18 around. But there's quite a size difference in there. To keep this fair, we used 90,000 kernels per bushel, so we treated them alike when we figured the yields here. I would suggest to you that the yields, that is not a 90,000 kernel. This might be about a 92. This is probably about an 80 to an 82. Good sized kernels compared to that. So you come in and you start to see, where the differences are. And as we walked in there, where the Y drop was in the green corn, it was 219. And right over in this section here, it was 139. So we had an 80 bushel difference. And the only difference is timing and positioning of product. So I told Tim, I said, well, what we need to do is walk up in that hybrid B, because I said you can't see it with the drone there. And so we walk up in there, and with no visual difference, we were right up in here, right on the row. We took yield checks over on this side of the corn, on this side of the corn, and Ken's got some pretty good corn here. And it's 55 bushel difference. Ken said, I don't know. He said, I'm crying. I don't know if it's tears of joy for you, Greg, that your products are working that well, or if it's for me that I was so stupid that I put a check in. And I said, well, I'm really glad you let us come in and put a check in, Ken. And then I told Tim, I said, that's not good enough. I said, that's making me nervous. I said, let's walk all the way back to the east, and let's go down in here. I said, let's go back at another spot where we absolutely can't see a difference. And we come down here, and once again, we're showing 28 bushel response. This is what we're going to talk about today. It's not that we're so smart. It's about how do I and you as professional corn growers take and create a system. Doesn't matter whether you're on 30-inch rows, 15-inch corn, 20-inch corn, heaven forbid, 38-inch corn. Well, why am I even going there? So, whatever your system is, we want to walk with you and help you take and get these kind of returns.